So thank you for coming out, everyone. This is episode 7 of the We Are CC podcast. I am not Tom Crown. So unfortunately, Tom Crown could not be with us. Also, Mr. Both of them are under the weather. Bad timing for us. So you're going to have me, you're going to have Oz, and then of course it'll be the same agenda, same discussion. At the end, we'll do the Q&A as always. For the intro, I wrote some really great intros this week, and it's a shame that we're not going to get to use all of them. But first off is going to be Her Majesty's official cryptocurrency minister for all of South Kensington, Oz. And then Mr. Long on NFTs, Poppy. Don't forget to check us out. Podcast link is CC podcast.buzzsprout.com. All right, Oz, I think just like last week and the week before, the thing that's dominated the news cycles has really been Russia and the conflict in Ukraine. We've seen an increase, a very distinct, marked increase in the types of sanctions, not just from governments, but you're starting to see a lot of corporations piling in, effectively adding to that kind of sanctions of not just the Russian government, but the Russian people. The most recent one that really stood out to me was Visa and MasterCard, which is the number 1 and the number 3 largest credit card companies in the world. They transact, quite a bit. I mean, there's nowhere I've personally gone that I haven't been able to use one or the other. And this one obviously has a big impact on the just everyday citizen. In the past, a lot of these sanctions that they would do against countries would usually be for, the higher ups, the elites, the rich, the politicians, that kind of stuff. But in this case, this is just a broad impact to everyone. And it's funny too, because right before the podcast, someone was asking in the chat, like, hey, I'm in Russia. How do I buy Bitcoin? And, I was sitting there thinking, like, that is a dilemma, because a lot of these...
It's a good question.
Yeah. And we're certainly not here trying to tell you how to get around sanctions, and that's not the purpose of this call, obviously. But, I would say in that case, if that's a challenge for you, and not just in Russia, but anywhere you are, you can always look at the decentralized side, right? That kind of goes back to the main purpose behind the foundation of a decentralized currency like Bitcoin, right? Was that sometimes traditional systems fail. Sometimes traditional systems can't be trusted. Interesting to mention to this conflict, and this kind of sits out of the... So you have the military engagement, obviously. That's a very big part of this. On the sanctions side, it's almost as if the financial aspect and implications of this conflict are starting to outweigh the military side of it.
It's pretty brutal what they're doing. I mean, they're kind of forcing themselves out of the situation here. They don't want to get involved militarily. So what's the next best action? Just put a bunch of sanctions on all the citizens, and soon enough they're going to kick up a fuss. Because if America or Europe or literally anybody else puts in a say, Russia's not going to care. But if you start having everybody protesting, getting annoyed at you, soon enough you're not going to be able to throw everyone in jail. Because currently in Russia, a lot of people are protesting, and the go-to solution is just arrest them. But if you have a whole country protesting against it because they can't even access their cards to buy bread, that's when the problems start to get real for Russia.
One of the questions that people were bringing up, crypto has been shown to be a positive force. When you can't access traditional financial services, you can go to it. On the other side of that, there's a concern that I think mostly is scared up by haters of crypto or by politicians that are saying crypto could also be a way to get around these things like sanctions, right? So sanctions are just kind of another form of aggressive diplomacy, I suppose. But to get around that, which would lessen the impact of those sanctions, they're worried that at least the rich, the elite in Russia, would use crypto to get around that. Now, I saw a few interesting responses to that, including some from Coinbase and from their CEO, from different crypto publications. And I think it really boils down to a couple reasons why that's not likely. One, the blockchain is transparent. So if we were to see some of these guys that probably moving or in possession of billions and billions of dollars in assets, right? You can't just go into crypto and buy a few $1 billion without getting noticed. And then once it's in the system, because the blockchain is transparent, wherever you move that money, people are going to be following it. And if there's any indication that it was, say, in this case, related to someone in Russia, even more eyes are going to be on it. And you might see that if you're kind of new to the space and you haven't looked at what's available in terms of on-chain data, and by on-chain, we mean all of the information that's secured in the blockchain. You can tell things like how long someone's been in possession of certain tokens. You can extrapolate massive types of metrics like what's the average amount of Bitcoin that was sold today, what's the average amount that was moved off of exchanges today. They even have wallets identified for things like, hey, here's some Binance wallets, or here's the top 10 whales. What are they buying? And you can look in their wallets and see what they're investing in. It's all very fascinating. And so I think that's a fair point. I do think that the transparency of the blockchain it is kind of a hindrance to someone that's trying to move that sum of money, like a nation, or I guess what they call them, oligarchs.
Oligarchs, I think it is.
Yeah, thank you. So the second thing that was brought up is that liquidity is a challenge. When you talk about liquidity, I'm trying to think of a simple way to put this, Oz, but if you're trying to buy or sell, say, $1 billion of something, if you were to just slam that market buy button, so for those who are kind of newer to trading, you go on to, say, Coinbase or Binance and you want to buy, and typically you have two options. You have a limit buy or sell, or you have a market buy or sell. Market will just boom, buy whatever the current price is. Limit, you're telling it what price you want to buy at, and so basically you're going to need seller at that price for you to buy from. So the price has to move in that direction, hit that price, and then you'll be able to buy. In this case, either way, if they were to put $1 billion, if they wanted to buy, say, $1 billion of Bitcoin, that's going to move the market, because these exchanges, not all of them, but some of them are hesitant right now to allow users from a sanctioned location invest through their exchange. That also adds additional layers of complication to where they may not be able to broker, say, a backdoor deal like an OTC over-the-counter deal with them. Then when you look at how much money just the richest in Russia have, and there's a lot of numbers that were floating around. I can't be sure of what the exact amount is, but they're saying in tens of billions of dollars that are potentially out there that the richest in Russia would be interested in securing, right? That's just too much. I think that's too much value to just jump onto these exchanges and quickly flip it into something like, say, Bitcoin or stable coins.
Well, I think the problem that you're talking about here is like slippage. I mean, you get slippage with smaller coins, but then when you get to a certain level of wealth, slippage becomes a really big problem, especially in the bigger coins. And it more becomes a problem with the exchange rather than the actual token. Even when you get like 1 billion, 10 billion, when you get into the billions, it doesn't really matter. It's still a huge amount of liquidity that needs to be provided for this. So it's not a very good system, because they're going to end up losing on a ton of money when they accidentally cause a massive candle. Another problem would also be it's completely traceable. When they buy that Bitcoin, every single Bitcoin they bought is noticeable, because, I mean, 1 billion, 10 billion, it's all going to get noticed. It's still a huge amount of money, no matter what. So pretty quickly, people are going to be able to work out where this money has come from, because it's not every day you see somebody mark in with $10 billion.
Yeah, but I would really love it if you guys are one of the ones with $10 billion that you want to buy something. Please just use the market buy button. I'll love you forever. There has been a trend over the past couple of weeks where there's been a marked increase in the amount of Ruble that was being sold into stable coins and Bitcoin. Now, because a lot of this is smaller numbers, I think this is really a reflection, for the most part, a reflection of just the average retail investor, just the average person like you or me that's just trying to protect their money. Because if you look at the Russian currency, the ruble right now, it's taken a major hit.
Yeah, huge hit. It's not having fun right now.
you've lost an incredible amount of buying power compared to the rest of the world right now. And if I was them, I have a family, and at the end of the day, regardless of what's going on, politics, geopolitical, macroeconomic, right? The number one most important thing you're going to do as a father, as a husband, is take care of your family, right? And so if I'm looking at my savings, getting drained away, I'm gonna find some way somehow to get that moved into, in this case, into a stable coin, into Bitcoin, because I know that that's going to be a lot more stable than what I have right now. And that's even with, obviously, Bitcoin's very volatile. People always like to make the joke, when countries, or big investors buy into it and then it drops, 5% the next day. Well, yeah, it's true. But over longer time frames, and this is where Bitcoin really shines, is over longer time frames, it is still on a only up trajectory, although with sometimes very significant corrections, so it just depends on your investment horizon. But in this case, compared to the ruble, the Bitcoin and US dollar would have been a phenomenal choice if you had managed to make that switch early.
Pretty much anything other than the ruble is a good option right now.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had the conversion rate for the ruble to the dollar, and it is now 0.001 US dollar per ruble. It's crazy low, and since the start of the year, it's lost 30% of its value, and against the euro, it's lost, I think, 2.5 to 3% since last Wednesday, which is pretty big for the Forex world.
Yeah, that is incredible. I wish I traded Forex. I hadn't even thought of that going into this conflict, but it would have been smart, wouldn't it? I think these sanctions are kind of unprecedented in a lot of ways, including the opportunity that it presents to investors or to traders. So I think this would be my takeaway, right? I'm really worried. I'm always worried. There's always an opportunity to FUD, and everyone has an agenda, right? There's always politicians sitting out there. I won't name any in particular, but there's always politicians, or there's people who I will name, like Peter Schiff, who, despite being famous for being a gold investor, tweets about Bitcoin 5 times a day. No lie, he really does. Maybe gold once every 3 days. They're looking for these narratives to kind of paint crypto and Bitcoin as a bad thing. I think that the narrative you walk away from is, okay, sure, yeah, maybe there are some bad actors that could take advantage of this to shuffle some of their funds into crypto, but I don't think we see signs of that. We haven't seen anyone dropping, $1, $2, $3, $5, $10 billion, into crypto anywhere. But we have seen a lot of small investors in smaller numbers entering the space suddenly. This is really giving that average person a means of protecting their savings when traditional systems fail. I think that's an incredible story. And not just that, the ability to receive funds directly. A nation's, a government, like in Ukraine's case, the government putting that petition out, like saying, hey, we need money, we need support. If you can donate to us, donate. Here's our wallet. Boom. Getting that money that can go directly into defense, into first aid, into other support directly, because otherwise, how would you do it? I mean, I guess you could do wire transfers, checks, PayPal or something to some third party. It's got to do an international transfer. And then it's a question of, well, are you doing it through a charity? Are you doing it through someone else? Is it going to get to the right people? No idea. But in this case, they jumped on Twitter, they put their wallet address in, and boom, the rest of the world has a direct line to just drop $100 of Bitcoin in there. I think that's an incredible story to tell.
Yeah, it's actually a really good takeaway as well. The fact that there's no third parties, there's nobody taking that cut. All of the money you donate just goes straight to Ukraine, and the only fees you're paying are gas fees, which are pretty nominal. And when you're only sending like $100, the best bit about it can all be tracked. You can see where the money is going. You can see who's getting paid. You can see what they're doing with the funds, which just adds another layer of transparency and trust with the Ukrainian government and the people that they're now having to protect.
Crypto, for the first time, in my opinion, has proven its worth in a very tangible fashion. Before now, it's always kind of cycled through these different possibilities: a store of value, a financial transaction platform, a hedge against inflation, and some of these are questionable. But there is no doubt in my mind, and nor should there be any doubt in anyone's mind now, that in times of distress, in wartime, in any other sort of emergency event, maybe an earthquake or hurricane, whatever it is, if all their systems fail, as long as you have a smartphone with some sort of network connection, you can get funds sent to you in one way or another. I am sure that you can use that to buy things. And I think that's incredible to think about. Just a few years ago, the thought that governments would be begging people for crypto, over Twitter, you would have never believed me if I had said that. We're going to talk a little bit about DeFi. And I know, Oz, you are a fan of Phantom.
Oh, yeah, big fan.
And I think a lot of people listening, especially if you're in DeFi, are going to be a fan of, I wish I knew how to say his last name. So first name, Andre. Already a lot of people may know who I mean. Last name might be like Cronje. And I apologize, Andre, sir, if you're listening and I said it wrong. Cronje. So for those who don't know, he is one of the most famous developers in the decentralized finance space. His fame really started to take off after he invented or founded Yearn Finance. Yearn Finance, for those who don't know, if you're not active in DeFi, think about this. In 2020, the governance token for Yearn was worth a little bit over 4 Bitcoins. You could have sold just one YFI token and bought 4 Bitcoins with it. That's crazy. But that was the DeFi summer of 2020. If you missed the party, I'm sorry. It was probably a lot of fun for a lot of people. But the big news this week, though, I don't know if you saw this, Oz, he and a key partner basically made an announcement that they're retiring. And they didn't just say, hey, we're done, but the project's in good hands. It'll have positive, I see great things on the horizon. It was hey, we're done and we're terminating these 25 projects.
Yeah, I saw that and it was brutal. I was just like, what's going on here? This is like the worst retirement ever. There's tons of ways he could have done it. And he just flat out said, these 25 projects are getting shut down. They're not getting shut down. Mm-hmm. It just means they're being moved. They're all open source. I mean, the wording was just so off.
Yeah, the wording, when I first read that, I had a little bit of a panic because I'm very active in the DeFi space. And I mean, I have a small bag invested in Yearn, definitely not a big one, but it's kind of like the granddaddy in the space, in my opinion, right? It's the biggest, it's arguably one of the most successful. So if suddenly it was just turned off, there would be a lot of implications across space, because you also got to know across DeFi, a common strategy is, hey, I'm gonna build a platform. Let's call it Poppy DeFi. So I stand up Poppy DeFi, and then what you do is when you invest in Poppy DeFi, my vaults or my strategies actually might just be pointing to Yearn, or they might be pointing to Curve or Convex or any of these other big protocols, because they have all the funding, they have all the money. And so I'm just kind of building on top of them. I may add some other incentives on top of that, right? So maybe it's a little more interesting to invest through me to get that exposure. But at the end of the day, you're really just investing in Yearn or Curve or whatever. And to have part of that ecosystem suddenly come down would be terrifying. That could have wide-ranging implications across the DeFi space that would make a lot of other protocols unstable, maybe lead to a lot of people losing money. So that's why the wording was terrifying, because the way they wrote it, it sounded like that was all going to go away. But to what you're saying, Oz, yes, it's not that they're shutting down the smart contract. The actual code in the background, that's going to continue to run. So if your funds are in those projects, to the best of my knowledge, they're completely fine. But what is getting shut down is the front end, the way that people interact with them. So when they posted that we'll call it retirement message, it was really to say, hey, we're not going to maintain these user interfaces anymore. So you guys will have to replace them. You could copy the code, you could fork it, you could do whatever, but you're going to find some other way to interact with the contract. Okay. Slightly less scary than what we initially thought. What some people may not know is Andre has been in the space for a while. And it's not the first time that he's rage quit. I hate to use that word, but it's kind of what it was. It's not the first time he's rage quit the space. He's expressed on many occasions a kind of displeasure with, I guess, the attitudes, the sentiment, the people within DeFi. He's been really frustrated in the past, and I think it just kind of came to a head. I mean, I don't know, Oz, you might have a different perspective. I know you do a little bit less on DeFi, but I could see I could make that case. I could see there is a lot of people within crypto that maybe are a little bit pushy and a little bit, I don't want to say unpleasant to be around. Most people are great, but if you're a developer, I know for a fact many of my developer friends have had death threats. They've had slurs. They've had some very angry, emails, messages. It's a brutal space sometimes.
Yeah, of course. I mean, anything you're doing that's this public, you're obviously going to get hate. But then when you're the lead of this project, literally any decision you have, people are going to be upset about it because there's always somebody that doesn't agree with you. It is a toxic space, especially for him. And I think even though there's that aspect to it, I don't think this was the way he should have done it. There's better ways to do it. And it does feel a lot like a rage quit.
Yeah, I hate to put it that way because, at the end of the day, a lot of people owe a lot of things to Andre. He changed a lot of people's lives. DeFi changed a lot of people's lives. That's not to say on the other end of that a lot of people didn't, lose a lot of money as well. But innovating and, pushing the bar forward, making DeFi better. I mean, that's to me, that's the closest thing you can get to furthering Satoshi's vision in building a decentralized apparatus of some sort of financial apparatus that supports the common person. I think more than anything in crypto, more than NFTs, more than whatever Coinbase or Binance is doing, more than anything, I want to see it level the playing field. That would make me happy if, by the time I'm retirement age, we have a healthy DeFi space that, maybe you can get a mortgage to buy a house through, or you get a car loan through, or whatever. It's fairly automated and it's fair, right? Because I don't think the current financial system, in my opinion, is very fair at times. And I don't know about other people, but like in the US, you got to go by system. A lot of banks, what they go off of is credit scores. And these credit scores, there's three major agencies that manage those. And those credit scores kind of control your life. If you have a bad credit score, you might have trouble getting a job. If you have a bad credit score, your girlfriend or boyfriend, they may not want to get married to you. I know I had that talk when I first proposed to the wife, and she was like, hey, so now that we're getting serious, let's talk about money. I mean, do you have debt? Do you have savings? What do you have? So that's a common discussion. So anyways, these credit scores, what I think kind of sucks about them is that all three of those agencies are privately owned. So now a private corporation that no doubt has its hands and fingers and all kinds of other information is probably selling information to banks and so on and so forth, right? They basically control your life and what you can do. You wanted to buy a house in your 20s or 30s, but your credit score is not great. Well, too bad. Crypto kind of levels that playing field, right? Because there's no credit score. It's either I qualify or I don't based on the assets that I have available. I could go out right now. I don't know if you've tried this, Oz. I've been talking to some other folks in RCC about this, but some of the services, and I'm not shilling this type of service, right? But there's services like Alchemix that you can go and you can deposit a certain amount. Let's say deposit 10 Ethereum, and then you take a loan back against a portion of that. Not the whole thing, right? Because markets are volatile, but you get a portion of that back. And then what Alchemix will do in the background is pay that loan off for you over time. So in theory, you're not, there's minimal risk of liquidation. Now, these strategies aren't aggressive that they use to pay off your collateral, right? So it could take a few years. When you do that, you're going to see it might be like 2026 or something, right? I haven't looked at it in a while. That it'll be paid off, and you could pay it off early yourself. But just the idea that that's even a service. Imagine going to your bank and saying, hey, I want to get a loan, but can you guys pay it off for me? And Oz, what do you think they would say, man?
I mean,
do you think
they'd probably tell you to go away. They might even throw the police on you because you're crazy, I think what they're doing is amazing because it kind of levels the playing field here. I mean, credit score, if you have a negative credit score because you did some silly things in your youth, that's going to haunt you for the rest of your life. So now you have these services like Alchemix, and I think it's called collateralized loans or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting because pretty much everyone's a winner. Nobody's coming out on top here. You're getting your money. They're getting their profits, obviously, but you get your money back at the end of the day. You don't lose anything. So I think while this may not be the ultimate solution, it's definitely the step in the right direction. There always has to be a first for innovation to continue.
There does. There does. By the time you're my age, I hope that the space will be mature enough that you can start to buy houses and cars through DeFi.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. The first time I heard about Alchemix, I was like, there's no way that's real.
Yeah.
And by the way, there are competing products. There are other products that do that. And I'm not saying I haven't looked at the rates. In fact, I don't have anything in Alchemix right now. So please, we talked about Catcoin, first or second episode. And then apparently it went on a rally. I'm so sorry for that. Apparently that was us. I don't want to go and see Alchemix take off now randomly and then something bad happen.
Oops.
Yeah, but it's wild. It's absolutely wild that you can do that in crypto, man. I got to tell you, it's one of my favorite things in this space. And there's so many other innovative things. I'm not even going to go on I could go on a tirade right now about all the things I love in DeFi. But I will end this part of our discussion by saying DeFi is not without its risks. Don't assume it's just, it's going to work and it's guaranteed, right? It's still the early days. There's no there are some protocols do have insurance, and then there's other third parties that do sell insurance for DeFi investments. So that is a thing. Feel free to Google it. But in general, your funds are not safe. There's the risk of hacks, of rugs, of whatever. So make sure if you are doing DeFi that you're doing it informed. And one of the things I was offering up in the Discord, but also to the Reddit folks, if anyone wants just a DeFi 101, you just want someone to tell you how to get started, not shilling any specific protocol, just how do you set up a wallet? What are some of the basic terms, that kind of stuff. I'm probably going to do a live stream at some point on that. So, feel free to DM me, or if you're in Discord, just, tag me or something. But I love to teach people about that kind of stuff because in my opinion, DeFi is the real crypto. Stuff like Coinbase and Binance is just kind of, unfortunately, you're going to need those guys for now, but eventually they may be kind of like non-entities in the space as the decentralized side grows and grows. Oh yeah. So actually, to kind of cap off the DeFi piece, getting back to Andre. So when Andre and his partner made this announcement, basically all the projects and all the protocols that they support took a hit. Some worse than others. Honestly, Year in Finance, it was down maybe 13%. Oz, does that sound right?
Oh yeah, it's like 13-14%, maybe more now. It's a big dump.
Yeah, that's a big one, but honestly, in the grand scheme of things, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's just white noise for now.
I think short-term volatility, and that's what that was the one thing I was going to say on this is, normally we don't advise. In fact, even now we're not advising. Don't try to catch knives is the phrase we use in the analyst channel. Catching knives means the market's falling. As take Bitcoin, for example, it's basically been dropping for the better part of 5 months, right? Now you could try to catch knives along the way, meaning try to catch it right before it bounces. You might get lucky or you might get hurt. Most people get hurt because in my opinion, you should never trade against the trend. If the macro trend is down, and you're trying to day trade or you're trying to do low time frame stuff, leverage trading, only do shorts. That's going to reduce your risk profile a little bit. And if the market's a bull market, don't go and short the market during a bull market because I saw it so many times. So many people thought, boy, it's gonna hit that resistance and it's gonna dump for a little bit, and then it just rockets through, and then they lose all their money. So don't do that either. Trade the trend at a minimum. Then that way, you're reducing your risk a little bit. I don't know. What do you think, guys? Do you like to catch knives?
I'm not the best example here. I'm a little bit degenerate. I'm a little bit crazy. I like to catch knives sometimes. I've caught the bottom of memes sometimes. I like to do stuff like that. But in general, my advice would be liquid. Go with the flow. I mean, there's no point trying to fight this. Mm-hmm. Just go with the bigger wave. There may be some up moves. There may be some down moves in between. But overall, why take the 1% pump up when it's going to dump a further 10%? Just go with the flow and you won't get hurt too bad, at least.
I wish more people would listen to us. You guys may not know this, and ladies, but Oz and I are very active in one particular channel in RCC, in Discord, which is the technical analysis channel. We spend a lot of time there just posting charts and, trying to figure out where the market's going. But we always have kind of, I call them randos, come in once in a while with an idea, and they're like, hey, I'm gonna 100x short or long something, and I don't really have much of a plan. That's it. And it never ends well. It never does. So one of the things that got hit this week was Phantom. And in terms of TVL, Phantom, until, let's say, yesterday, Phantom was one of the star performers in the market. But because there's a link between Phantom and Andre, it took a little bit of a hit. And so, yeah, I think it's sitting at number 5 right now in terms of total value invested into Phantom, meaning how much cash value is inside Phantom floating around. That's TVL, total value locked. It's down 20% in the past day. It's down over 30% in the past week. And for something that has or had almost $10 billion invested in it, that is a major hit.
That's right.
I mean, what's going on there, Oz? I know you're more into Phantom. I honestly haven't done much on Phantom.
Yeah, I mean, I'm big into Phantom. Actually, I mean, I'm just gonna come out right now. I do have some bags of Phantom. However, I mean, this is not me shilling. I think it's a good project, but there's a lot of development there. But this is definitely a big hit, and we also had another founder of Phantom Foundation walk out. I think just at the end of February, like around February 20th to the 1st of March. So it's starting to take its toll. But I think projects with good growth and projects you really believe in, you shouldn't really get yourself caught up in this. I mean, look at Ethereum. They had 9 founders to start off with, and now they only have Vitalik left. People are going to get burnt out. People are going to leave. But at the end of the day, the strong projects will come out on top. And I think Phantom will ultimately get past this.
Yeah, look at the fundamentals of the chain. So this is one of the things that this is the pattern you've seen since 2020, which is that cycle of all, we'll say, competing layer ones. Everything's competing with Ethereum. And if I was a betting man, a gambling man, I would say out of all the chains out there, Ethereum's going to be the one most likely to still be around in, say, 10 years, right? Some of these others probably won't be. But if you think that you've done the research, you've looked at it, we'll use Phantom in this case, you've looked at Phantom and you say the fundamentals are strong, the development team's strong, the cult of personality around one individual, in this case Andre, it's irrelevant. Even Ethereum probably has the most developers in the space. I mean, maybe Bitcoin does, but Bitcoin's one of those things that people sign up to, I believe people sign up to be devs just to put it on their resume, right? I don't know that they're all very active. I would suspect that Ethereum has the most active developers in this space.
I think there's a statistic on this, and I think Ethereum was actually like the top for development.
Yeah, if I was a developer, I would probably sign up for Ethereum, even though it's cost me an arm and a leg in gas over the past year or two.
It's not cheap.
Mm-hmm. But if you've done that research, and like in this case, if Oz, if you feel good about Phantom, I mean, there's no shame in trying to build out a long-term position in it. Just keep in mind that the markets right now are a little bit unsteady would be a good word. I think, we could probably pause for about 30 seconds and talk just about current market, current charts for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is an indicator of the larger market sentiment. Bitcoin is still setting a higher high, right? Or a higher low. So
I think currently, yeah, it's still externally, it's bullish. However, I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes, really. Currently, I'm just using these past few days of movement as white noise because, after a few days, the pumps and the dumps, they all get faded. Doesn't really matter. I think the market is looking healthy, and there are actually, not sure how, depending on your perspective of this, kind of depends how you think, but on-chain data says that smaller guys, so fishies, I guess you could call them, compared to whales, they're actually accumulating a lot more aggressively than they were in previous months, which is kind of a good sign for the smaller guys, at least. I'm not sure what that says about the market, but, at least people are stacking their sats.
I think a lot of people saw what happened in 2020. So when the market bottomed out and the incredible rally that Bitcoin went on, and the whole crypto market really, we're at that point where mass adoption has started. The trust in Bitcoin, the trust in crypto has risen to a level where it's entered popular culture. It's no longer something you can ignore. Actually, that's not that I want to segue yet, but this is kind of something we're going to talk about later, which is a lot of corporations are now looking at the crypto space and realizing, hey, even if I'm not a financial service, I need to start thinking about what's going to happen in a world where, say, a crypto metaverse is the new Facebook, is the new Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever, where cryptocurrencies are used in day-to-day purchases for stuff. I need to think about that. One of the things that I think was really interesting recently is when you think of stocks, the New York Stock Exchange is probably, to me, I guess I'm an American, so I'm slightly biased, but the New York Stock Exchange is probably the most prominent in my head, right? If someone said, hey, what's a big stock exchange in the world? I would say the New York Stock Exchange. They just applied for a trademark this past week for NYSE, for the New York Stock Exchange, for NFTs, cryptos, digital collectibles, and marketplaces. Now, tell me that isn't really an interesting development.
Oh, wow.
I mean, can you think of...
That's huge.
That is, right? And I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, well, where could that go? It almost sounds kind of cheesy, but I could see the New York Stock Exchange even doing things like, hey, we're going to stand up some land in the metaverse, and we're going to sell like digital accessories in Decentraland that have, NYSE on, logos on it and stuff. And then, I could see day traders in New York City buying these virtual suits that have NYSE on it and then hanging out in the metaverse. I don't know.
It'd be so cool to see what they have planned. I mean, it's just crazy to think. I mean, what are they doing? This isn't generally like the kind of people you'd see interested. I mean, we have companies like Adidas and Taco Bell interested in the metaverse right now. But the New York Stock Exchange, that's like a whole different gravy right there. Like, they are like as big as it comes pretty much. This isn't a small fish. Like, these guys are massive. So for them to have interest in it, like, what are they planning,
Yeah.
So many questions there. I mean, it'd be so cool to see how it progresses over the few months.
Yeah, think about this. You guys remember, the ones listening, Poppy was the one that brought this alpha to you. You didn't see this anywhere else. Yeah, actually, when I saw it in the news, I was like, wow. So you got to remember the one thing, the little tidbit that a lot of people on the sidelines keep thinking about and waiting to see is how much cash value the boomer generation has locked up. And the boomer generation at this point, I'm going to be honest, they're extremely advanced in age. I mean that with all due respect. Their days of dominating politics, finance, everything is probably coming to a close soon, right? So one of two things are going to happen. One, right, the remaining boomers, they're going to have to adapt with the times if they want to make money, and they see this kind of pivot into crypto, pivot into DeFi, pivot into NFTs, whatever. At some point, their broker is going to say, hey, financial advisor is going to say, hey, maybe we want to diversify. Maybe we want to buy a little bit of Bitcoin. Maybe we want to buy a little bit of this metaverse. Whatever it may be, they might say, okay, sure, why not? I don't know any better. That sounds cool. But on the other hand, and I don't mean this in a bad way, right? When they pass away, that money has to go to someone. So in a will, right? They will it to their children. So now we're talking Gen X. So Gen X is a little bit more crypto friendly. Gen X arguably is probably the generation that created crypto. I am guessing. There's no way to know because Satoshi is anonymous, right? But is somewhere between the boomers and Gen X is where Bitcoin was founded. That money eventually is going to come into the space one way or another. I don't see crypto going away. They still control the lion's share of all the cash in the world, all the cash value in the world. When that hits crypto, that's the moment that a lot of people are waiting for it to be a validation of, hey, crypto is here to stay. And I think that the New York Stock Exchange applying for that trademark, they know that they can't ignore crypto anymore.
Sure. I mean, it's not necessarily like they're going to do anything for now. It's more so they see the potential in the future that they might need to set up these places now just to future-proof so somebody else doesn't in the future. So it's kind of like they're getting their foot in the door just in case something really is progressing here.
Yeah.
That it's not necessarily a look that they're going to do anything. It's more so the fact that they're acknowledging it could be a huge thing. That's the main big takeaway.
They're acknowledging that they can't ignore it. And to me, that's a win at this stage. At this stage, the fact that something as old and as respected as the New York Stock Exchange saying, I cannot ignore crypto anymore. Yeah, it's a big deal. I should pay attention to that and see where it's going. And kind of an interesting sidebar on that. CVS Pharmacy, for those in North America, they know that's a large pharmacy, a very large pharmacy across the continent. I don't believe it's international, but they applied too. And I thought that was just interesting. I was trying to think of like how a pharmacy would even integrate crypto or integrate NFTs. And I'm sure that there are applications that probably more related to the NFT side. But I just thought that was interesting. And when you see kind of obscure, profitable, large corporations, but not anything even remotely related to finance, starting to look at the metaverse space, I mean, that's wild. Maybe it's time for them to buy a little bit of Decentraland or Sandbox. I don't know.
It's definitely interesting to see. I mean, we've been in this space for a while. I know you've been in this a lot longer than I. The amount of development we've seen from companies recently, it's a lot more than we've seen in previous runs. And it's just crazy to see how many of the big names, like this is what we've been waiting for, you know. It's not necessarily the companies buying in, but it's the acknowledgement that it's not going away anytime soon and they need to take notice.
Yeah, you got to pay attention to where the money is. At the end of the day, that's definitely the number one thing. And I talked about this before, and I think everyone here that's trading, do yourself a favor, go and Google Grayscale Investments. There's a page out there. I wish I had it. I don't have it up right now. There's a page that shows everything that they're invested in. If you think that you are smarter or you can out trade the largest holder of crypto in the world, you probably aren't and probably can't. So it's good to see what they're doing. Grayscale is among the top investors in crypto in the world. I would definitely bookmark them. Mr. X. So Mr. X posted a note for me. He said, grayscale.com/products. Oh, no, this is it. Yep. And if you hang around the RCC technical analysis chat, I have been known to convert this into an Excel file so that you can actually filter and sort on all of Grayscale's holdings. Because what they do is they tell you from week to week what they sell and what they buy. And I do think it's interesting, though. Again, going back to the discussion of, hey, boomers still control the lion's share wealth of cash in this world. A lot of the coins and the tokens that they invest in my opinion, in Poppy's opinion, are what we would jokingly call boomer coins. And so, you know, you're at the opposite end of the spectrum. Things like Zcash, let's see, Ethereum Classic, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin. Hey, I do love Litecoin, but you know, when you think about those, would you jokingly probably call them boomer coins, right?
Of course, yeah. I mean, they have been around for the longest, and they used to be in the top 10, and now they're a little more dormant compared to what they used to be. So they're definitely like the coins that the old guys like to hold.
Yeah. And again, at the end of the day, you want to follow where the money is, right? Even if you see it, that something else is a better product. I mean, certainly you can improve on many of the coins in this space, but if there's no money there to buy it, it's not necessarily a good investment, right? You need to follow the money.
Yeah, of course. Go with the flow.
Go with the flow, as Bruce Lee said, be like water. I suppose the younger generation, Oz, you guys know Bruce Lee, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, good. Just making sure. I don't know at what point my pop culture references start to fall off.
I mean, Bruce Lee's fairly big. I think everyone knows him.
To imagine that on a random crypto podcast, 30 years after he's passed away, that he's being referenced in terms of...
Oh, damn. That long ago?
Yeah, I thought it was the 70s or 80s. I mean, I thought it was before I was born.
Oh, wow.
I know I'm old, but I'm not that old.
1973. It's crazy.
And just a reminder, we do record this live, but we clean up all the post-production. Mr. X, you can find him in Discord. He does the Lord's work in terms of cleaning up all the ahs and ums and all the awkward pauses. But also, actually, this is a good segue. So talking about Mr. X, one of the things that we do is kind of an off-brand item is we do AMAs. And so we're looking for new AMA participants. Ask me anything for those who aren't familiar with the term AMAs. We're not looking for, this is one thing that's very important to us, both on the podcast and in the AMA side. We don't want to come off as shills. We don't want to shill things. We don't want to encourage you guys to do anything that we are talking about. But also on the AMA side, right? We're looking right now at market leaders, industry leaders. If there's anyone out there that would love to come in and do a little bit of an AMA with our cryptocurrency, please reach out. We are looking for participants to sit in on that. So for our final topic, and this is probably my favorite because I always love this stuff. There's always some sort of drama in cryptocurrency, right? Every week there's something new, and then every week we forget about the last thing. So for this one, we're talking about NFTs. Now, Oz, I'm going to ask you, if I said, hey, if you pay me 29 Ethereum, I'll have dinner with you, would you do it?
I mean, a legendary dinner conversation with Mr. Pappy. It's a deal I can't refuse.
Well, let's set that up because that's more than my net worth right now. Let's do it. Let's go. No, okay. What if I said 32 ETH, 32 Ethereum, and I'll give you my WhatsApp and you can message me?
I mean, it's not as good as a dinner. I don't think it's quite worth it.
All right, fine. Last one. What if I said I'll send you a couple, maybe even 2 headphones and then a magazine clipping? I'll cut it out myself. I'll send that to you for like 5 ETH. Okay, I take that as probably not. All right, so there's a gentleman by the name of Tai Lopez. Tai Lopez, for those who don't know, he was the guy that 7-ish years ago started spamming these advertisements, mostly I think on YouTube at the time. They were like, hey, check out my garage. I got a Lambo. There. Everyone's favorite thing in crypto.
Lambo on a bookshelf.
And I have, 10,000, 100,000 books? Yeah, he was well read and he loves cars. I guess that was his thing. And he'll teach you how to be rich. All right, that's great. But here's the fundamental issue for generations. This is not an issue for our generation. This has been an issue and a recurring theme for many generations. Guys that want to teach you how to get rich quick, if they knew how to do that, they wouldn't need to sell you the program. I'm just going to put it out there. And even me is I'm a guy that really, truly, genuinely really want to see people succeed, because to me, Satoshi's vision is a beautiful one. I've seen what happens with the challenges, the trials, the tribulations, the discrimination, the many challenges that come with traditional finance, and I want to level that playing field. But even if I had a Loctite, 100% formula for getting rich, I probably wouldn't share it. I certainly wouldn't sell it to you for, say, $30 a month. But in this case, this gentleman does promise this. But what's really unusual is he's had a recent pivot into crypto, and not just a pivot into crypto, into NFTs. And you can buy these NFTs to do a few things. So, Oz, how's your basketball game?
I mean, I watch it. I'm not the best. I can't dunk. But, I can shoot some hoops,
Can't dunk. Your name was Big Man. I mean, I assumed you were like a tall guy like Shaq.
No, I'm 6 foot. I'm going to be honest. I'm not the tallest.
I'm disappointed, sir.
Don't let the voice confuse you.
To me, this is anecdotal, but when I used to live abroad in a few places. When I lived in Germany, I feel like 6 foot was just average. So I guess the UK guys, you guys are a little bit shorter. I mean,
Central Europe and especially around Germany, those guys are tall. Okay.
Well, I guess that's why there's not a lot of English NBA players, right?
I mean, yeah, I don't think the league is very big here. The most adventure I think there's a London NBA league. But
no way, is there?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta check that out.
I mean, you haven't even heard of it, so that says how big it is. It might not even be on anymore.
Yeah.
I think it might have actually been. Okay, here we go. The last time they played was 2019.
Oh.
And it was an annual basketball association game held in London. I think it was actually they just flew the players out to London to play. That was it. And clearly they haven't done it in a while, so I think it didn't go too well.
I guess that makes sense. A lot of the NBA players that fail to make it big or leave their big life in the NBA, they go and play in foreign leagues. I'm not going to even speak to some of our former big NBA players that went to, North Korea to play against their teams and said that the leaders of North Korea were great people. That was a whole different thing. But we're getting off topic. That's way off topic. I love basketball. Anyways, one of the things you can pay Mr. Lopez for is you can play basketball together. But the funny thing is it costs around $40,000 to play basketball with a chance of winning $10,000 if you can beat him. That seems like bad value.
I don't know, the experience.
I feel like at least the prize should be the same as the cost of entry, right?
I mean, maybe you should limit it. You get a Lambo and a book. I think that would be a better deal. But you're still losing $35K even if you actually destroy him.
Yeah, what if LeBron James says, you know what, I want to check this out. All right, I'm gonna hit up Ty Lopez. I'm gonna buy this NFT. I'm gonna wreck him at basketball and get a free, I guess 10. Well, it's 10K, right? But whatever, he gets free 10K. But he still loses out 30K. That doesn't make sense. Yeah. Mr. Lopez, sir, you got to fix the numbers on this. Hey, another option, you could watch a movie together. You could ride a plane together. Or my favorite, this one was like, I forget what it was. I don't know, 20, 30, 40 ETH. I think it was like 40 ETH. I wish I had that kind of money to just dump. But you can watch him work for a few hours. You got to fly yourself there. You got to stay at the hotel. But if you buy this NFT, once a year, you get the chance to watch him work. That is the NFT.
Once a year?
It's only once a year, sir. I'm sorry. You can't go twice a year.
Oh, you kind of lost my interest there.
For a young man like yourself, this could be a great opportunity. I mean, just imagine. You could put on your resume, watch Ty Lopez work.
You got to watch him work, and you also got to watch a movie with him. I mean, that just goes perfectly on the resume.
Most of the items are only for 1 hour, so it's got to be a short movie.
What movies are even 1 hour nowadays? That's an awful deal.
None.
Yeah, you pretty much got to stack these NFTs now. Just get a whole movie out there.
So for all 45 people that stream this live, although we do have a good bit more that download, and to you guys, thank you so much. Really, we enjoy doing this, and I hope you guys get some value out of this. But there's a Mr. Cockley 13, COKLI 13 on OpenSea. That's just the name you named your wallet. You paid to play basketball with Mr. Ty. Please DM me. I would love to have you on here and talk about how that went. I honestly, genuinely curious.
Could be a good AMA.
It would be a great AMA. But for everyone else who's listening, if you see something like this, don't do it. I'm just telling you guys, honestly, if you want to know the basics of reading charts, the basics of trading crypto, honest to God, Oz, myself, the rest of the guys, we sit in the RCC chat most days, pretty much all day. More than happy to teach you fundamentals. We're not even talking specific projects. We won't tell you what to buy. We'll just tell you how to interpret the market and how to make smarter investments free of cost. All you got to do is come into the technical analysis channel. It doesn't guarantee success, but hey, it sure beats paying 40 Ethereum to have dinner with some guy that's not going to tell you anything.
You could always tip us 40 ETH. I'm sure we'd appreciate that.
If you have 40 ETH, then you're probably already more successful than us anyways. Anyways.